information, ladies, is the deadly destruction in obesity. And we're going to talk about that tonight. So, are you ready? I've got a lot of information to share, and I cut out a lot of information. So, hopefully we can get through this, and you guys are going to be able to hang with me. But first, I just want to kind of put on the table a personal philosophy that we need to be enlightened about the nature of our problems. And when we're enlightened about what's going on, then we can be proactive to find a solution. So basically, the bottom line is that we have the power to choose, and we can choose to live a healthy lifestyle, or we can choose not to, but basically it's on us. So in tonight's webinar, we're going to talk to you about the comorbidity of obesity and degenerative diseases. And basically what that means is that obesity is a disease pretty much. It's going to lend itself to a lot of illness and health issues, and alongside of obesity is a lot of degenerative diseases that make us sick and make us die early. And I'm going to talk to you about the metabolic syndrome that's connected with obesity, and talk to you about adipose tissue that's actually a live organ in our bodies. And adipose tissue is fat. And what are the nutritional benefits that's going to help modify inflammation and improve our health. And of course, some certain food groups that are going to help us with inflammation. So let's get started. Okay, ladies. Currently, over 90 million Americans are suffering with a chronic disease, and leading the pack of the 57 million deaths each year, accounting for 59% of these deaths, are cardiovascular disease, diabetes, cancer, respiratory disease, stroke, Alzheimer's, dementia, and atherosclerosis. Worldwide, half of our population are inflicted with one or more of these diseases. And the leading cause of death? Atherosclerosis. Now this is a condition where there is a buildup of cholesterol and fat. Lipid, they call it. High lipid in our bloods, in our arteries. It can cause angina, constricting of the heart. It can cause heart attacks, strokes, peripheral arterial disease. It's all buildup in the blood based on buildup of plaque and cholesterol and fat in the blood. The leading cause of death. Okay, how do we define obesity? Well, when we did our pre-assessments, we did a body mass index, and it gave us a number of where we stood. Anything over 30, ladies, is defined as obesity. Now, this doesn't mean overweight. This means obese, which means you're at high risk for health issues. So, our nations are getting fatter. We are getting fatter every day. And associated with obesity is significant morbidity and mortality. That means disease and death. And it's increasing worldwide, not just in America. The World Health Organization estimates that since 1980, just since 1980, the prevalence of obesity has increased more than threefold throughout the world. Just since 2005, the World Health Organization reported that more than 400 million adults worldwide are considered obese. And this continues to climb at an alarming rate. So, along with obesity, we have a growing epidemic with related disorders, and that's hypertension, insulin resistance. Our body's not managing the insulin that is put out to lower the sugar. Diabetes, dyslipidemia, and that's where you have an imbalance of your fat, your HDL, your LDL. You've got high HDL and low LDL and high triglycerides. That's dyslipidemia. non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, and again, atherosclerosis, which is the leading cause of death. Along with obesity is certain disorders. Sleep apnea syndrome is, obesity is the #1 factor that is an indicator of obstructive sleep apnea syndrome. And I got to tell you, if you've got sleep apnea syndrome, that cannot be a fun thing to have to deal with, because basically obese individuals are subject to respiratory problems. There's a lot of fat around your lungs, a lot of fat around your neck. You're not able to exercise as well. You're not able to breathe as well. Your lungs are constricted. So when you go to sleep, of course, this causes a collapse of the upper airway while you're sleeping, while you're laying supine, which is laying on your back with your head up. You're not able to breathe well, and so sleep apnea is that you actually, your sleep is very fragmented. And 60 to 90% of patients that are diagnosed with sleep apnea syndrome are obese. And just a mere 10% weight gain, and that's not hard to do, is associated with a 6-fold increase in the risk of developing sleep apnea. And of course, those who suffer with sleep apnea also suffer with hypertension, insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular illness, stroke, and metabolic syndrome. In addition, obesity increases the risk of cancer 4.5-fold. All right, so let's talk about metabolic syndrome. In the USA, approximately 47 million people have metabolic syndrome. Now let's talk about what that was. This was just defined in 1988. And it goes along with the fact that we've just been getting fatter, and now we're having all these issues. So some of the conditions that go along with metabolic syndrome are, of course, obesity, but primarily abdominal obesity, where most of the fat is around your waist. Hyperlipidemia, which is, again, excess fat in the bloodstream. Hyperinsulinemia, which is you've got a lot of glucose in your blood, and the insulin's not taking it, not putting it where it needs to go. So it leads to insulin resistance, and of course hypertension. So all of these conditions are correlated with metabolic syndrome, and they're also linked to high morbidity and high mortality and obesity. So if you have 3 of these, then you would be considered metabolic syndrome, and it's kind of the precursor for diabetes. So weight gain is a major predictor for metabolic syndrome, and of course all of this can be avoided. So let's take a little poll, and let's open the poll. Okay. Are you at risk for metabolic syndrome? No poll. Okay, no poll. Hold on. Sorry. Okay. Open poll. Here we go. Are you at risk for, do you have any of the following risk factors? Okay, give it a few minutes, a few seconds. Okay, all right. Few more. Okay, let's close the poll. The results showing? Okay, so we have 23% of obesity. We got high cholesterol. No one's indicated they have elevated sugar in the blood, and some high blood pressure. So some small percentages there. So Good job on that, ladies. Thank you for voting. Okay, let's talk about inflammation. Now, I'm not going to get into a lot of the biology, but we do want to understand the etiology is what causes inflammation. And so we're going to just touch a little bit on that. And make sure okay. All of the obesity disorders have the same biological etiology, and that, my friends, is inflammation. All right, so what is inflammation? Inflammation is the body's response to injury, to irritation, infection, a foreign invasion of something. It's our body's natural defense system, and it serves to defend the body against foreign invaders like viruses, bacteria, fungi, toxins. We've talked about toxins. And the purpose of inflammation is to bring the body back to homeostasis. So we want to bring the body back into balance. And kind of like, your thermostat. If it gets too hot, the air clicks on. If it gets too cold, the air clicks off. So that's what inflammation does. It's like, whoa, something's going on here. Let's get rid of it. And so it's a natural process of our body and necessary for healing to occur. So, for instance, if you get cut or stub your toe or you come down with a cough or a cold or a flu, your body's going to have symptoms, pus from a cut, a runny nose, watery eyes, coughing. It's your body's warning sign that there's an infection or a disease. So the symptoms, of course, you can have a swelling, redness, pain, or a loss of function in a certain part of your body. So we've all experienced that. Why? Why do we have inflammation? Well, there's many reasons for inflammation, and the immune system perceives something as a threat in our bodies. So this can be a microbial infection, which is a virus, a bacteria, parasite, or a fungus that can be a threat to our body. We can get inflammation from surgeries. Periodontal surgery, dental implants can cause inflammation. Surgical inflammation is called surgical stress because you go in, you're having surgery, the tissues get, messed with, they get inflamed, blood flow gets redistributed. Sometimes there's stress, sometimes there's complications. All of that can cause inflammation. Or even trauma to the body, tissue damage, a bruise, a broken bone, excess ultraviolet radiation, burns, frostbite, all of that causes inflammation. Vaccinations. Inflammation is also a response to the body when we're trying to detoxify from harmful chemicals. So sometimes you may have had a reaction from, a strong smell, or when you're cleaning in your home using strong chemicals. Sometimes you may feel, weak or dizzy or sneezing or allergies. It's all your body's natural way of responding. Yes, ladies, estrogen therapy can increase inflammation. Of course, smoking and tobacco. And here we go. Excessive sugar in the diet. Processed foods can trigger inflammation. And, of course, allergies. And allergies to known substances such as pollen or animal dander, gas fumes, or other agents, as well as sometimes we're actually allergic to food. And certain foods, when we hear about the gluten, all the gluten stuff, a lot of people are allergic to gluten, which is found in wheat and a lot of our grains, and their body's not handling it right. So what happens is our body perceives it as a foreign invader, and then the immune system goes on high alert and tries to get rid of it. And last but not least, obesity can incite inflammation, and we're going to talk about this in a little bit. So let's get a little bit better understanding of inflammation. There's two different types of inflammation. The acute, of course, is something that we've all experienced, where the body immediately reacts to the foreign invasion and tries to rectify that. So it's short-lived. It only lasts a couple of days, and it's a natural, healthy response to illness and disease. White blood cells go into the tissue and try to get rid of all the foreign invaders and process it and remove all the debris and dead cells. That's all good. Chronic inflammation. This is only when inflammation is chronic, this is when we get into trouble. Low-grade inflammation is a continual response of the immune system to a perceived ongoing problem. So the immune system's constantly responding to something that's happening in our bodies. Healing does not occur when we have a chronic inflammation. And this can result in degenerative disease, so basically declining health. And in many situations, we don't even know that our bodies are responding with inflammation. We may be sick, and we don't know that the underlying cause is inflammation. So this can be extremely, extremely harmful. Research has shown that chronic degenerative diseases are expressions of chronic inflammatory processes. So there's a lot of studies out there to show that the etiology, when you go to the root of the problem, it's an inflammatory issue. So blood tests will reveal the inflammation, and there's biomarkers to indicate levels of inflammation, C-reactive protein, interleukin-6, tumor necrosis factors. These are all biochemical mediators that when they're elevated, it's an indicator of inflammation. So while the inflammatory response in chronic disease is similar, the causes can be diverse, and if we don't deal with the causes, then we're not going to get lasting relief. So in order to improve and maintain health and recover from the diseases, we have to go to the underlying causes of inflammation. And this is what I really like about functional medicine. If you find a physician that focuses on integrative functional medicine, you're going to find someone that's going to help you not just alleviate the symptom, but help you identify the cause. So obesity and inflammation is, goes hand in hand. So in 2005, there was a conference in Turkey that was called Obesity Inflammation, and since then there's been an explosion of studies to identify what's going on with obesity and inflammation. And over 1,400 publications to date, and what they found is that obesity elicits a chronic, low-grade, systemic inflammatory response, and this is what is underlying the diseases that we are experiencing. So the interesting thing about this is that adipose tissue, which is the fat, is actually a very viable organ in our body. So the adipose tissue produces, it's like an endocrine gland that produces regulatory messages that mess with our immunity, our satiation, hormones get messed up, and metabolism and glucose. So the adipose tissue is actually contributing to further obesity, if you will. So it's the largest endocrine organ in our bodies. And for instance, when we do the BMI, if you had a BMI, if you remember from your pre-assessment, of 22 to 23, that would mean about 20% of your body weight is actually adipose tissue, which is fat. If you have a 30 or more BMI, about half of your body weight is fat. So we're just telling it like it is tonight. So now the interesting thing about it is that what they found in the studies is that it's not necessarily the amount of fat, but the distribution of fat. So if you have a more central fat deposition. They call it the android, the apple shape, and that's, you know, right there. And then the pear shape was the gynoid. So the apple shape, it takes home the prize of being the highest at risk for metabolic disorder and degenerative diseases and so forth. So, is it time for the next slide? All right, so the other thing that we want to recognize is that with obesity, it's going to mess up with our pancreas, our liver, muscles. I mean, all of this fat is going to alter our organs and our joints and increase our risk for metabolic syndrome. And then hand in hand with obesity, we've got diabetes, high blood pressure, hypercholesterolemia, which is, you know, high cholesterol, atherosclerosis, fatty liver disease, gallbladder disease. You know, many people who are obese get their gallbladder removed, cancer, arthritis, and Alzheimer's. I tell you, it's just no way to live. And so obesity just is going to increase our risk for chronic inflammation and increase morbidity and mortality. So not a good thing. Now, fighting inflammation, of course, what's contributing to it, nutrient overload, our standard American diet, high fat, fried, salty, processed foods. Those are going to increase those biomarkers in our bodies. We may not know it. We may not know that we're inflamed, but it's going to increase those biomarkers and just wreak havoc in our body. Now, you know, some of the drugs that are offered can be helpful in alleviating some of the inflammation, but not necessarily treating it from a holistic to prevent it, but maybe alleviating some of the symptoms. And of course, lifestyle changes, and not just nutrition, ladies, but activity, getting enough rest, dealing with our stress. Okay, not only do we need to get rid of toxic foods, but we need to get rid of toxic people. You know, if we have friends or family that are toxic, we need to set some serious boundaries with them. But that's in the psychology department, so I'll hold off on going on that platform. And you know, another thing that has happened so much in our society is that we have a ratio, a very, very imbalanced ratio of omega-6 fats to omega-3 fats. And it used to be, years not too long ago, the ratio was like 1 or 2 to 1. And now the ratio is like 25 to 1. Omega-6 fats is mostly your saturated fats found in meat and dairy. And omega-3 fats, monosaturated fat, polyunsaturated fat, these are the fats found in plants, olive oil, your flaxseed, chia seeds that we're all taking part of. All of these are anti-inflammatory and good for so many things, joints and brain and everything else. Moving right along. You guys still with me? So real quick on the glycemic index and glycemic load, because we've got a webinar next week on glycemic levels. And oh, here we go. Anything that's high, processed foods, high in sugar, it's going to spike your glycemic index. And actually, I brought a handout for you guys. Let's see if I've got it. Okay, I've got this, and it's available for you all to download, and I'll also put it up. But it gives you an idea of what's high, what's low. And anytime you have something that's processed with a lot of sugar, you're going to get a high glycemic index, and this is going to put sugar into your bloodstreams. And sugar, if you remember, is an indicator of inflammation. So we want to keep our foods low on the glycemic index, and then there's also glycemic load. So that's kind of like, even if you have a food that's low in glycemic index, if you eat a large quantity of it, it's going to spike the sugar in your blood. So that's where the portion controls come in. So not easy, ladies, but it's necessary and it's important. So one of the biggest things to do is to eat a lot of fiber, okay? Because fiber, number one, doesn't have any calories, and it helps keep that blood sugar level stable. And of course, it's good for your digestive system, good for your cardiovascular, good for fighting off inflammation. So we want to take into account, what we're eating and make sure that we can kind of keep an eye on our glycemic. That's why sometimes some people say to eat fruit by itself. I always encourage people, have a little protein with your fruit, even though the fruit has fructose and it has fiber in it. Some fruits might have a higher glycemic index, so add a couple of nuts, add a slice of cheese, add a little peanut butter, keep that glycemic level low and keep you going slow and steady throughout the day. So so that you have a handout there that you can be able to download to give you, it's about a 4-page handout, so it'll give you a lot of information. So let's get into a little bit more of the nutritional. Here's the fun part. Anti-inflammatory benefits of foods and beverages. Now, isn't that nice? Red wine is anti-inflammatory. I really, really like that. And so it's got beneficial properties. It has antioxidants. And, of course, a little overindulgence might, shift that a little bit. Green and black tea, fruits and vegetables, of course, high in antioxidants, flavonoids, vitamin C. Helps to mediate the inflammatory process and reduce those biochemical markers. How fun, coffee. Even though the studies are contradictory, it's not to say that coffee causes inflammation. It says on some of the studies, some of the groups benefited from coffee as far as being anti-inflammatory, and then there was no results on some of the others. So it's okay to have some coffee. Cocoa, let's see, this is all good stuff. Dark chocolate, not the milk chocolate, not the white chocolate, but dark chocolate, because it's got well, where did I put it? It's got the flavonoids in there and antioxidants, and it's got health benefits in it. Nuts and seeds, of course. Now, here's the deal. You don't eat nuts and seeds that have been roasted in palm oil or any kind of oil, because that'll kill the process. You want to eat nuts and seeds that are raw. So the advantage of eating nuts and seeds that are raw is that you don't end up eating the whole can. You can eat you can eat a handful of nuts, raw nuts, walnuts, pistachios, almonds. These are all great nuts. They have great omega-3 fats, and they're great anti-inflammatory. So eat your nuts, ladies, but eat your raw nuts. Any kind of beverage that's got fructose or high fructose corn syrup, anything that's got high fructose corn syrup, ladies, is going to increase obesity and increase inflammation. There's absolutely nothing good about high fructose corn syrup. Your body sees it as a foreign invader, and it is. It's a man-made something to make everything sweeter and make us addicted to it, too. So get your fiber, get your fish and seafood. It's great for so many different things, but again, we're talking about inflammation. It reduces it, but we have to be careful. We don't want to get the fish that's farmed, because if the fish is farmed, that means it's been feeding on something that may not be natural to its habitat or environment. So go for wild fish, and then you'll be good to go on that. And, of course, soy. Anytime you get soy, make sure it's organic soy, not genetically modified soy. And a lot of soybeans, oils, nuts, they all have good properties that are anti-inflammatory. And herbs and spices. And this is what's fun with eating a lot of vegetables and so forth. You can try out different herbs and spices: garlic, curcumin, cinnamon, fennel, ginger. We've been putting some of this in our juicing. Capsaicin, it reports anti-inflammatory benefits, and that's the research is out there to show that is true. So that's why our juicing is good. And a little trick that I found is I'll put a garlic clove, I'll smash a garlic clove inside half of a tomato. So I'll have cut my half a tomato, stick that garlic clove in there, and add that to my juice, and it really kind of subdues the taste of garlic. And I love it. It's a great way to add garlic to your juice without, it just kind of killing the taste. I have a handout. Let's see which one it is. Right here, Living Without Inflammation. And you can see eat more of and eat less of to fight the inflammation. Because if you fight inflammation, ladies, you fight disease. So it's not even about losing weight. It's about fighting inflammation. So let me get back to the presentation. And basically the safest and most natural way to treat inflammation, subsequently treat obesity, lower your risk for chronic disease. Don't be one of those 47 million people or 57 million people that die in early death of a preventable disease. Taking a nutritional approach is safe. It's natural. There's fewer side effects than prescription medicine. It puts you, ladies, in charge of your health. So the evidence is out there. If you show a healthy dietary pattern, the Mediterranean diet has much report on health and anti-inflammatory and all of that. It's fish, fruits, vegetables, cereals, nuts, your good oils, and all of this is very good for you. So we got through it, ladies, and I hope that you were able to stay with me. And if we can open up for some questions. I hope I can answer them.
Christine had one back. So she said, what about stress? How about stress? And I'm not sure.
Stress is definitely going to increase your inflammatory process because you're eliciting stress hormones and your body's not getting the rest that it needs. So definitely we need to deal with stress. But guess what, ladies? Exercise is a wonderful way to reduce stress, eating well, getting your rest, getting rid of the toxicity in your life. There's a lot of things that we can do. Stress is not a bad thing. It's how we respond to stress. So we can learn how to respond to stress in a healthy way.
Nancy asked, how do we download the slides?
I can put the slides up if you want them and have them. I can put them in our Dropbox and put them on our Divalicious Facebook group, and you can access those. And the handouts, I'll put those up there too.
Okay, let's see. Where do you get the lab test of the biomarkers, and do you get it from a regular medical doctor?
That is a good question, but absolutely you can ask your physician to run some tests. That you want to test for inflammation, and it's even if you did a lipid test, you could tell. If you're high triglyceride, high cholesterol, you can tell. Of course, Dr. Sheila Dean does all of that, so you can always go see her, and she'll get the lab scheduled for you. But your insurance should pay for any kind of laboratory testing.
Right. Sandy asks.
Olive oil is coconut oil is a popular option, and walnut oil. So maybe add a little bit more oil, but basically what we're focusing on is the omega-3s. So don't worry about like coconut oil, the saturated fat, because it's a different type of saturated fat. So You don't have to just stick with olive oil. Flax oil, it's not good for cooking, but you can add it in your baking. And, of course, I have ground flaxseed every day in my smoothies or sprinkle it on my peanut butter and Ezekiel bread. Flax is excellent, excellent, excellent. It's also good for your joints, good for your brain, ladies, so we can stay sharp as we continue to progressively get older, keep our brain sharp, keep our joints good, and keep the inflammation down.
Betsy wants to know, where is she located, and can you give us her info?
Dr. Sheila Dean, there's a handout on our Divalicious website that has her information because she presented a webinar for us, and you can access her 10 tips for weight loss, and her information's on the bottom of that handout.
Georgia wants to know, how much flax seeds should you have per day?
A couple tablespoons. So I'd say at least 2 tablespoons. You can always, we're getting our fats in some of our foods and stuff. So if you're going to just supplement with it, a tablespoon or 2 tablespoons.
Okay, and Betsy wants to know, how much flax? Above that.
Oh, are the chia seeds as good as flax for benefits? Yes, absolutely. Chia seeds have all this similar properties. So get you some chia seeds and grind those up, or beat the seeds. But yeah, that's good, ladies.
Kelly asked, did you see the recent study on fish oil supplements?
No, but if you send me that link, I'll check it out. So, there are some really good supplements, but again, you have to be very careful about where you get your supplements. Make sure it doesn't have binders or fillers or added stuff that you don't want in there. You want it to be completely natural and organic. All right, ladies. Well, it's getting late. We don't want to stress ourselves out staying up too late. So I'm going to sign off, and I thank you all for being such a part of this webinar, and thank you all for being a part of this clinical study and for the great work that you're doing. And I'm really excited for all of you, and we're going to get our run on this weekend, ladies. So have a great week, and we'll see you soon. Good night.